Hey everyone, and welcome to this deep dive. Today we're going to explore something really fascinating. It's all about those hidden opportunities lurking right under our noses
Yeah.
and how we can learn to actually spot them. You know, kind of like those gorillas we often miss even when they're right there.
hmm
So to guide us through this, we're going to be diving into excerpts from Richard Wiseman's book, Did You Spot the Gorilla? And we'll also be pulling some insights from his Wikipedia entry.
Yeah, and you know what's so cool about Wiseman's work? He kind of blends science and showmanship in this really unique way. I mean, he's a psychologist and a former magician. So he gets how our minds can play tricks on us, but also how we can train ourselves to actually see those things we might normally miss.
Now, speaking of tricks, you probably heard of that famous gorilla experiment, right?
Oh, yeah.
But it's worth revisiting
Okay.
because it really shows just how powerful selective attention can be. So
hmm
in this experiment, people watch a video of basketball players passing a ball, and all you got to do is count the passes.
Right.
Instead
It's
of-
simple enough.
Right. But here's the catch. A person in a full-on gorilla suit walks right through the middle of the action.
And the crazy thing is, most people totally miss it. They're so fixated on counting those passes that their brains just filter out everything else. It's called inattentional blindness.
Yeah, when I first heard about this, I was like, no way I'd miss a gorilla. But then I started thinking about all those times I'm so glued to my phone that I walk right past someone I know and don't even see them.
It happens all the time. I mean, our brains are flooded with information constantly. There's just no way to process it all.
Right.
So we develop these unconscious filters. They help us focus on what seems important and tune out the rest. But the problem is, sometimes what we filter out could be a big deal, you know?
Hmm.
A hidden opportunity.
Hmm.
Or even, yeah, a gorilla in a basketball game.
Okay, so how do we escape these mental blind spots? That's where Wiseman's work gets even more interesting. He doesn't just point out the problem, he actually offers some solutions.
Yeah.
He says that by understanding how these filters work, we can actually start to see the world differently and maybe even change our own luck.
And what's fascinating is that Wiseman doesn't think luck is just random chance. He argues that our habits and mindsets can really play a role in attracting good fortune. He calls it the luck factor.
Okay, this is where things get really mind-blowing. In his book, The Luck Factor, he talks about research showing how lucky people tend to be more open to new things. They're more optimistic, and they're more likely to see the positive side, even in tough situations.
He gives this incredible example of a man who got shot during a robbery. Now, most people would understandably focus on the trauma, but this guy, instead of feeling like a victim, he focused on how lucky he was to be alive.
Wow.
And that shift in perspective led to some really positive changes in his life. He even said the experience helped him find his true calling.
That's incredible. It really shows how much our perception can shape our reality.
Mm.
And that's what's so empowering about Wiseman's work.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like he's saying, oh, well, our brains are flawed, so we're all doomed to miss out. It's more like, hey, we can actually do something about this.
Yeah. Absolutely. And the first step is just being aware of these filters, these biases that shape what we see and how we experience the world.
So let's dive into some of these biases. How do they show up in our daily lives? And what are some practical steps we can take to overcome them?
Well, a common one is confirmation bias. That's where we tend to favor information that backs up what we already believe, even if that information is iffy.
Oh, yeah.
And this can lead us down this rabbit hole of misinformation, and we end up missing out on valuable insights that could challenge our assumptions.
Right. And I think another big one is negativity bias.
Yeah.
Like our brains are hardwired to zoom in on threats and problems,
Right.
which probably kept us alive back in the caveman days.
Probably.
But these days, it can lead to a lot of anxiety, stress, and just a general feeling of doom and gloom.
Absolutely. And it can also make us miss all the good stuff happening around us. You know, all the opportunities for joy, connection, and growth.
So how do we rewire our brains to be more open, more aware, and more receptive to those hidden opportunities?
Well, one of the keys is to develop what Wiseman calls a luck mindset. It's about shifting our focus from what we're missing to what we already have, from problems to possibilities.
So it's not about ignoring the negative stuff completely, but more about choosing how we react to it.
Exactly. Wiseman's research shows that lucky people don't necessarily have fewer bad experiences. They just have a different way of looking at them and dealing with them.
Like that man who was shot during the robbery. He could easily let that define him, become consumed by fear and anger.
Right.
But instead, he chose to see it as a fresh start, a chance to turn things around.
That's powerful. And it's something we can all learn from. Instead of asking, why me, when something bad happens, we can ask, what can I learn from this? Or how can I make this into something good?
So this luck mindset, It's not about just wishing for things or pretending everything's okay. It's about actively choosing to focus on the good, on the opportunities that are often there, even when things are tough.
And it's also about being open to new experiences, stepping outside our comfort zones and taking some chances.
Because sometimes those lucky breaks are really just the result of putting ourselves out there, right?
Absolutely. Think about it. If you never leave your house, you're probably not going to stumble upon that amazing hidden bookstore or have a conversation with someone who could change your life. Yeah. But if you're out there exploring, engaging with the world, you're way more likely to run into those unexpected opportunities.
It makes sense.
And that's where serendipity comes in. It's not just luck. It's about being open to the unexpected, noticing those connections and coincidences that often lead to something great.
So how do we become more serendipitous? Is that something we can actually learn? Or are some people just naturally more prone to those happy accidents?
I think it's a bit of both. Some people might be naturally more open and curious, but it's definitely something we can all work on.
And Wiseman actually gives some practical advice for boosting our serendipity, right?
He does. One thing he suggests is to just be more observant of our surroundings. Pay attention to the details, the patterns, the unusual things that we might normally miss.
It's like that saying, you see what you look for. If we're always glued to our phones or lost in our thoughts, we're going to miss those subtle cues, those chance encounters that could lead to something amazing.
Right. And he also suggests trying new things, shaking up our routines and exposing ourselves to different perspectives.
Makes sense. Because if we're always doing the same things, going to the same places, talking to the same people, we're not giving ourselves much chance to encounter anything truly unexpected.
Exactly. And finally, he emphasizes the importance of networking, building relationships with people from different backgrounds and fields.
Because you never know where that next great idea or opportunity will come from.
Right. It could be from a chance meeting at a conference, a random chat with someone at a coffee shop, or even a connection made through social media.
So it seems like this luck factor is really about setting the stage for good things to happen. It's not about sitting around waiting for the universe to hand us something. It's about actively engaging with the world, cultivating a positive mindset, and being open to the unexpected.
It's about realizing that we have more control than we think, and that even small changes in our habits and perspectives can make a huge difference in our lives.
I love that. It's so empowering. It's like Wiseman is giving us this toolkit for unlocking our own potential. But it's up to us to actually use those tools, to put in the work and to embrace the journey even when it takes us in unexpected directions.
And who knows, maybe along the way we'll even spot a gorilla or two.
Now, wouldn't that be something? So let's wrap up this deep dive with some practical takeaways. How can our listeners use these insights in their own lives? One of the biggest things I'm taking away from all this is the importance of just being aware. It's so easy to go through life on autopilot. Just kind of missing those subtle signs and opportunities because we're not really paying attention.
Yeah, that's true. And it's not about being like super alert or overanalyzing everything. It's more about finding that sweet spot between focus and openness, being present in the moment, but also being open to what's happening around us.
I like that, like having a soft focus where you're taking in the whole picture, not just zeroing in on one tiny detail.
Exactly. And that's where things like mindfulness can really help. By cultivating that sense of presence and non-judgmental awareness, we can become more attuned to those little nudges, those synchronicities that often guide us towards our true path.
I think it's also important to remember that this luck mindset, it's not a one-time thing. It's something you got to work on and practice regularly, like a muscle.
Absolutely. It's about making a conscious choice every day to focus on the good, to look for opportunities, and to be open to the unexpected.
And maybe even to challenge our own assumptions sometimes. Because sometimes those gorillas are right there in front of us, but we miss them because we're not expecting them to be there.
It reminds me of that Wayne Gretzky quote, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It's the same with opportunities. If we're not willing to step outside our comfort zones, to take risks, to try new things, we'll never know what we're capable of.
So true. And I think that's a great place to wrap things up. Knowing what we know now about selective attention perception and this whole idea of a luck mindset, what are you going to do differently to be more aware of the opportunities around you?
Will you try a different route to work tomorrow and see what you find? Will you chat with a stranger and see where it goes? Will you say yes to something that scares you a little, but also really excites you?
The possibilities are out there. But the first step is just being open to them, believing that they exist, and being ready to grab them when they show up.
And remember, you don't have to do everything at once. Even small changes can make a big difference. Start by noticing the good things in your life. Practice gratitude and look for those hidden opportunities that are all around you.
And who knows, maybe you'll even spot a gorilla or two along the way. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We hope you've learned something valuable that will help you unlock your own potential and create your own luck.